Where are you, Jonathan?
Hi,
Hi, Jonathan.
here I am.
Hiding in the
How
background.
are you?
I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm interested in auto tags too, by the way.
Okay, great. We got you.
I just want to make sure I sign up for that.
Yeah, yeah. So, Jonathan, you're a music supervisor in New York. You primarily work on advertising campaigns, but have done some more documentaries and films lately. Can you just share a little bit about what you're working on and kind of how work is as a supervisor these days?
Yeah, definitely, and thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I am fortunate that I'm working and that I've sort of set myself up in a way that I know how to, even when I'm not working with clients, I know how to sort of make effective use of my time. So there's a lot of time within the day where it's not directly working on like a creative search or a license deal, that preparing myself for future projects or business development sort of efforts, or just honestly like going out into the world, like on the web and finding creative inspiration and thinking about it and just kind of just expanding the way I think and the way I prepare for projects. So I am fortunate that I am working on a documentary project right now that I know there's a lot of production constraints right now. Fortunately for this one, it's a lot of archival materials are going to be utilized because it's a retrospective about a prominent sort of founder of a company about that sells snowboards. So yeah, that's as much as I can sort of say at this moment. But no,
Okay.
it's a cool project, and that's certainly keeping me busy. And then I did recently get my first COVID-19 response ad. So I've been kind of assessing what's happening within the advertising industry, because a lot of my contacts and my network is largely within that sort of commercial production world. And there's not as much work. I'll just be completely honest. That's really the feedback that I'm getting. But I think that's going to sort of shift, and there's going to be a little bit more of a ramp up now that we're sort of kind of getting sort of settled in a little bit. It took some time for some of these big companies and corporations to sort of shift their strategy, move their offices home. And I think that they're now working more closely with their agencies, trying to get answers to questions they have about how to sort of position themselves in the market. And, commercials are starting to be made or have been made, and more are being made. And I think music definitely has a place in this new sort of market for commercial production. I think, music is one of those things that is almost certain. The song, a pre-existing recording exists already, so kind of what you're getting, and music is going to add a lot to low production value commercial projects. So I definitely don't shy away. Now's not the time to sort of like step back. It's the time to sort of step in, and make yourself sort of essential. Position yourself as best as you can with your music and with your artist, and think about what the needs are of the advertising industry or the film industry. Whatever is relatable to you in this moment is also going to be relatable to an advertiser. So think about those types of themes and those songs that sort of speak to what we're all kind of going through.
Yeah. So what are some of those like licensing trends or like trends? And I feel weird saying trends, but like, what is the music everybody wants and are asking for right now?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what
Besides
everybody.
the obvious, I guess it's the obvious.
I think some of it, yeah. I think it's obvious. I mean, I just went through a couple rounds of searching, and there were some songs that I don't think everything has to be so overly emotional. Like, I think some people want to sort of convey joy, but in sort of like an honest way. Not anything too sort of slick and sort of aspirational. Like more just like how can we find sort of simple pleasures in connecting with friends or in family on Zoom? A lot of productions are happening on FaceTime and Zoom and using technology that wasn't previously utilized. So, just kind of think about how you use those products, right? And, in all likelihood, you're going to see more and more projects, very sort of simply made, focused on how we're all kind of adapting to the situation and, thinking about things differently.
Yeah, definitely. How do you think the music community is going to change from all of this? Like, I even read the other day that they're anticipating we won't be able to have any large gatherings, so like no concerts, no shows for a year and a half. Like, any insight on your end on how you think that's gonna evolve?
I have been thinking a lot more about that, and also just now that I'm kind of going through the motions of like getting costs for tracks and licensing, also just understanding how that sort of path to an artist approval is happening now is very different than before. Artists are at home, maybe a little bit more accessible than they were before. So people are working and hustling really quickly to turn around stuff on tight timelines. In terms of like the touring industry, I mean, it's sad what we're up against with this pandemic and how that is affecting touring and performing live. I mean, I haven't really spent too much time streaming the sort of at-home concerts, but it's something that, I should sort of look a little bit more into, and because that might even sort of present opportunities for artists and connecting sort of partnerships between artists and brands. And we've been starting to see like companies like Verizon and Chipotle and make use of those partnerships. I think that there's going to be a lot of songwriting happening during this time. I think in a way it sort of slows people down. There's not that same push from the labels and, to get out and tour and to promote albums, that I think that there'll be more time to write and more time to connect with fans through social media.
Yeah, I think so too. I've already seen a lot of my friends that are like collaborating more on songs and just like sending tracks back and forth. And it's going to be exciting to see what people create during this time.
I mean, think about it. Every artist, songwriter kind of finds different time to write. And it seems like now is a time when everyone is maybe thinking about writing, and it'll be cool just to, like a silver lining in all this is just to see all the sort of creative output that, comes out of this.
Yeah,
I think that's really interesting. Definitely. Actually, the way that people are redirecting all of their energy from, the outward life, which is now not possible. And you just like you can't just sit still and do nothing. So it comes out in all these different ways. And heaps of people, I think, are really getting creative. I think it's pretty exciting.
And it's probably important to note that there might, be a lot more attention on film and television licensing, working with existing catalogs or writing to add to your catalog, and for artists or labels or companies that haven't been able to prioritize licensing, I think maybe now is a good time.
Yeah, definitely. Switching gears a little bit into more of your kind of workflow and preferences. Do you have any preferred ways in which people can reach out to you and send you music? And then like on the opposite end of that, are there certain ways that make it more challenging for you, and any ways to kindly let people know that produces more work for you?
Yeah, I would sort of just start off by saying it's not an easy question to answer, and like I'm sort of constantly sort of like refining my like process and ways to work more effectively. I operate my supervision company alone. I have people sort of in sort of support roles, but nobody that is like as hands-on with the creative and the music and the organization and the tagging and playlisting as I am. I mean, I sort of own that right now. And, you know, if I could duplicate myself or scale the business, I would put more infrastructure in place, because it's so critical for time management purposes to, you know, there's so many features within DISCO that I find a lot of value in, and then others that you've shown me and that I know are like coming in the near future that would be even better, you know, but it's so much time goes into it, getting kind of as granular as you guys allow it to be. But the things that I really focus on are, so I focus on, you know, it's really about like kind of playlisting, and then for client projects, but then also creating sort of more thematic playlists, right? So that if I'm tasked with turning around a creative search in a very short amount of time, then I am able to find, you know, my research more quickly. And going into client playlists and using the breadcrumb trail, it's a really good way for me to just find stuff, or even it's not necessarily ideas that I'm going to sort of capture for the search, but it sparks ideas and gives me, sort of helps me sort of redirect my thinking. And even just sort of like one song could, you know, help me think, okay, I need to go back through these other playlists, or these sort of themes would be applicable for the music search.
Yeah. Awesome. How do you deal with the, I guess, the volume of incoming music to you? You obviously receive in many different ways and formats. Is there a hierarchy to how you actually kind of deal with that? I guess there's stuff coming for briefs you send out, and just the general blasts.
Yeah. I really love the inbox feature and being able to funnel that music directly to an inbox. So for client projects, if I'm briefing,
why is that helpful? Really fast, that you can funnel it to one inbox. How does that help you?
It's just more streamlined, and so many of the features within DISCO save time, and it's just like all those like little split seconds or seconds that, you know, take you time to download and upload, and it all adds up. I mean, it's so important to streamline as much as possible, and to think about how you can streamline on your end, but also what would be really helpful on your receiving, your, you know, whoever you're pitching to, or if it's your client, or you know, a music supervision partner or somebody like that. It's so important. One thing that actually I learned only recently was that I could share channels. And what that does for me is, if I'm working on a project with kind of a bigger scope, and let's say I know for this documentary project that I'm working on, I'm going to be sending quite a lot of playlists over a long period of time. You know, if I'm only sending those individually to the director or the editor, it's very quick. It could very easily get lost. Stuff could get lost, and you'd have to then go and reference those individual sort of emails and links. And I think it's still important to send those, but to also give them the option of like a link to the channel where everything is already like lives in place, and it's sort of in a sort of a hosting page, makes such a huge difference with, you know, teams that aren't maybe as organized as, you know, we are. So it's important to think about who you're collaborating with and how you can make them organized as well.
Awesome. I actually haven't thought much about the supervisor sharing the entire channel for the project. Is obviously a logical thing to do.
I had never even thought about it, and I'm now know that I just said to the director, please bookmark this link, and just like going forward, I'll send you playlists, but also you know, I don't know what your workflow is like. You know, I don't know if when I send playlists, you're gonna like, you know, click immediately and go through it as fast as, you know, I would hope for him to do that. You know, so it's just nice that if that link gets buried in other emails, that he could always go back to that bookmark channel.
That's a really smart
that's a good
thing.
shout. I've never thought of that from the supervision standpoint either. So, well, that kind of answers my next question, but maybe there's more. But like, are there any other creative ways as a supervisor you've developed in using DISCO, in like ways that maybe you didn't think were there before? Or I mean, the channels thing is it, but is there anything else that comes to mind?
We sort of diverged a little bit between, you were receiving, how you're dealing with all the incoming music, which I think is probably going where you were going, Katrina.
I'll share. I think another thing that I have put in a bit more time into is the contacts and mailing list, and trying to organize my contacts based on relationship and what sort of information I know about their artists and their catalog, so that when I'm briefing out, I kind of already have these email groups sort of organized. So based on, you know, so creating mailing lists based on, you know, are these companies that are available, you know, at all budget ranges? Are these companies that only want to get, you know, receive briefs for, you know, 100K or above? You know, do they have, how much sort of archival sort of back catalog do they have? Like, can I rely on these companies for music from 50s, 60s, 70s, or is it all frontline, you know, very kind of current modern music? So just sort of thinking about what types of briefs I get and how I can sort of streamline not just, you know, music that I'm receiving, but even a step before that, how do I get that brief out to the right people?
How do you, so, you know, say I'm a rights holder and I've got, I think I've got all the music, all the perfect music in the world, you know, what's the best way to help you in outlining really what my strengths are, you know, when I'm presenting music to you, or trying to reach out and build a relationship? Are there some sort of really key things that you're like, just go, so I really know what this is about? How would you recommend we do that?
When sort of describing the catalog, or
yeah,
I think some of the things I just sort of mentioned, you know, do you have current music? I think a good introduction to a catalog is just sort of knowing what you think is sort of the strongest aspect of it, or like, I think don't say that you can serve every brief, even though you can. It's like, what is like the one artist or few artists that you feel like I should kind of focus my attention on if I'm not familiar with who you are or the catalog that you represent? Like, just make it really sort of easy and simple for a music supervisor to find like a way in, you know?
Yeah.
Because we're inundated with emails, and you know, it's really hard. And just, I didn't answer your question earlier, but the best way to sort of contact me is if we don't know each other, it's really a referral from somebody that we know in common or a licensing company. I can pretty much guarantee you that 99% of the time, if it's a cold email, I'm not going to be able to reference it or read through it or even click through it. And there's always some, you know, trust plays a big part in this business. And, you know, I say this a lot, that it's like, you kind of have to be a sort of perfectionist, because, and you have to sort of know who else are sort of like kind of working on that sort of level, because we're dealing with music copyright and we're dealing with things, you know, projects that move really quickly, and we need to make sure that the info is accurate and that the people that we work with and collaborate with like can be trusted.
How do people prove trustworthiness to you?
think it develops over time. It's something that takes time, and you just, I guess, have to sort of just be patient. And like we were saying before, just sending a sampler and just identifying really this is the best stuff for the stuff that I'm most excited about, or these are the artists that are getting, maybe they haven't, maybe they're not playing big rooms, 1,000-person venues when, live touring was a thing. But, they're getting reviewed on Pitchfork, or they're getting reviewed, so, music critics are taking notice, or give me something that like goes beyond the music, like something about their story or how they are relevant to this sort of cultural moment, some sort of hook.
Awesome. Yeah. Do you find that just even opening a song and looking at metadata, just talking about trust and how you can tell, can you tell if someone knows what they're doing pretty quickly?
I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, if metadata is, if people do take the time to fill in that information, and it's like really just, if you see that level of care and organization put into it, then that's a good indication that they've got their shit together.
Yeah, that's what we tell everybody.
but it's funny though. It's funny because I don't want to sort of knock the majors, but it's usually the indies that really put in that time and care. And it's sometimes when you get sent stuff from the majors, it's like no album artwork, no just no information at all, and so that's when the sort of detective hat goes on. But when indies send music, it's usually a lot of like they want to make it as like turnkey as possible.
Yeah, interesting.
Oh no, someone said hashtag not all majors.
I know. So also I just want to point out, like, the album artwork is so important to me personally, and I don't know, maybe other music supervisors would agree. And personally, I'm not in love with like catalogs that put their own company like logo on tracks. Like, give me the artist's artwork. Like, sometimes like just looking at an artwork gets me interested in a track. Or like,
definitely.
If the artwork had if there was as much thoughtfulness like put into the artwork as there is the music, then that might give me some sort of key like into what this song sounds like.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, another music supervisor chimed in, Pat Buchanan, said artwork is huge for him as well.
Yeah.
So all you folks who don't have artwork, get to designing.
It is a funny. I was just going to make a real quick note on artwork. Just the way the artists will spend a huge amount of time writing music, making music, recording music, and going to town on all of that side. And then often the actual presentation at the end of it all is just sort of like, oh, here you go, like barely any time on the art, or how they're going to write about themselves and that side, which is really like for a lot of people very painful, and then have no interest in that. But I do feel like it's something to invest in as an artist, because a book is read by its cover, and we're not always going to hear the music straight away. But if we read something that's really like, oh, that's just sounds like a kind of interesting angle that you've got there, that really helps. And obviously if it looks great.
Yeah, just think about the imagery and the colors, and you don't need to put in a lot of money into it. Like, license a photo, just something that evokes a sort of a feeling or a story that is similar to the story and emotion that's in the music.
Awesome.
Yep. Someone did just write in and asked if we could show an example of perfect metadata. We have that in a blog post. Tim wrote a really good one about metadata, but we can link it in the follow-up for a recording of this, because yeah, we are happy to help walk people through how that should look and work. Well, we went a little over our time, but I'm not mad at it because we enjoyed talking to you. I had another question, but I feel like you already answered it. I just wanted to know if you had any like favorite feature in Disco that like really, really is a game changer for you. I feel like it's probably inboxes and breadcrumb trail. You talked about that, but if there's anything else you feel like sharing with the class, let us know.
It's just very, I don't know, it's very cohesive, and like it's not any one feature. I think it's kind of everything, and the fact that you're not, I mean, there's just, I'm actually, like I said before, I'm like only really kind of using the sort of basic features, and I know that if I had more time or more people, I would definitely use more of the features. So it's just kind of very cohesive, and the fact that you're constantly sort of developing the product and the platform just makes me feel, that much more sort of attached to it for doing work.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the iPhone app is basically is sort of out in beta a little bit at the moment. So everybody get excited about that because it's also very functional and in your pocket.
Yeah.
Cool.
When we get to go back out in the world again, it'll be really helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, you know what, to answer your question about game changing, and it's having everything stored in the cloud. It's that security, like, of not worrying about a hard drive anymore. I know it's been kind of like a while. If you're on a hard drive, like, get off of that, like, immediately. It's just pointless.
It's so risky too.
And just the fact that you can invite teams in and access it from like any device, and it's backed up, and it's just a beautiful thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Efficiency and effectiveness. It's the name of the game.
Yeah, it's just, music is something that it could be an endless sort of process. You can spend a lot of time, and you really have to sort of think about how you kind of manage that time and use it effectively. And I think this is just one thing that, accomplishes that. Some of it has to sort of come from you too. Like, I can't, put 20 hours into a search when it really just requires, 10, because you've got to kind of move on and do other things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It was awesome to hear how you're doing, and tips for folks out there when they're sending music to supervisors. Yeah, thank you again so much.
Happy to join. Thanks, guys.